Thank you for joining us for Pet Connect. I'm Tara Douglas. Thank you to everyone who came out last weekend to our adoption event at Pet Sense by Tractor Supply. We had some dogs from the shelter that were able to get out and come and meet new people at the store, and then also we have our cats who are there every week. So if you are looking for a cat, then stop by Pet Sense. You can stop by the shelter. And if you're looking for a dog, the dogs won't be there anymore, but you can certainly come by the shelter, and we'll be there this week as we are every weekend. As I announce every week, we're there from 11 to 1 walking dogs. And even though it's hot, we're able to get them out and get them in the shade somewhere so they can have a change in scenery, and they can also get some fresh air. And we have some kiddie pools out, so they've been enjoying getting in the water, and it's kind of fun to watch them get excited and dive down into the water and cool down. So if you're interested in helping, please come out and join us this Saturday. We also have our pet of the week. This is Aiden. Aiden is actually our longest running shelter dog. He's been there the longest. He is good with people, he's good with dogs, he's good with cats, he's been around kids, he is good on a leash. He is just a perfect dog. He's had the opportunity to be at For the Love of Dog with Meredith Dempsey for a period of time, and he actually got adopted, but his adopter decided that it was tough to have a dog in an apartment, so he just recently came back to the shelter. So we are very much hoping to find him a home soon and get him back out of the shelter where he can have a good home and lots of good activities, and just come meet him though, because he is just one of our favorite dogs, as all of the volunteers. And if you are interested in him, you can contact the shelter. You can also contact Feral Dogs of Avondale Mill, and we have tons of information about him. And then we also have another city event coming up this weekend. We're having our litter cleanup for the Sylacauga Beautification Council. So if you're not into dog walking or you want to do both, we're going to meet early to do that. So it's a little cooler. From 8 a.m. to 9:30, we're going to meet at City Hall, and we're going to walk down 4th Street and clean up 4th Street this Saturday. So come on out and support one of those events, and we would very much appreciate that help. Now we're going to get to the guests now. We have Jessie Prince. She's of Prince Hoof Care Services. So Jessie, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
I've had a lot of people talking about horses lately, so you have so much information about farriers that I know nothing about, and a lot of our viewers don't know anything about. So for those of you who have horses, forgive those of us who know nothing about them, because I'm going to ask some very basic questions of Jessie here. But Jessie, tell me about your business.
So I started my business about 3 months ago. I went to Lookout Mountain School of Horseshoeing, where I learned to shoe horses.
Okay.
And prior to that, I became a student with the PHCP, which stands for Professional Hoof Care Practitioners. I'm still a student with them. It's a go-at-your-own-pace course, and it requires a lot of traveling. You have to go out of state to different clinics and mentors, and they're a barefoot trimming school, and they teach the natural ways of things and composite shoeing.
Okay. Now, is the Lookout Mountain School, is that the closest one around here? There are a lot of different schools and opportunities to do what you do?
Yeah, Lookout Mountain is in Gadsden, and I believe it's the only one in Alabama.
Okay.
There's not very many that I know of.
Okay. Now, you talked about how you can trim the nails of the horse, and we've got shoeing. What are the different options for horse hoof care? What do people normally do there?
So they can be barefoot. Some horses need shoes, but if your horse is comfortable and sound and happy barefoot doing its job and doesn't have any issues, then it's best to leave them barefoot. But there's so many different types of shoes and so many different options that, the possibilities are endless.
Okay. See, I had no idea about that. And I've been talking to a lot of people that don't know anything about horses to help me get questions for you. And that was one of the questions is, do you have to shoe a horse? And we were talking about horses in the wild. And so what happens in the wild with a horse, of course, who does not have options to get shoes?
Horses in the wild, they travel 25 plus miles a day just in search of food and water on really rough terrain. And they naturally trim their feet and create a bevel called a Mustang roll.
Okay.
And so that's the way that I learned to trim when I first started. And when I got my start, I learned the Mustang roll, and we try to keep it as natural as possible.
Okay. And now, are there other ways to trim, or is that the primary way to do it, is like a Mustang would have?
There's other ways to do it, yeah.
Okay. Now, how do you decide when you say you have a client that calls you? How do you decide what's going to be the best route, or is it just what the client wants as far as shoeing or not shoeing?
It depends on the horse. You know, really, a lot of clients want what they want, and you do what the client asks you to do. But we're all farriers are just advocates for the horse, and we want to do what's best for the horse.
Okay.
So, if we think that's leaving them barefoot, then we'll do that, or if they need shoes, we'll put shoes on.
Now, what kind of training? We talked about the school that you went to, but what does that entail? What do you have to do to become a farrier?
So, week 1 of school at Lookout Mountain, they put you under horses, like day 2,
Okay.
and you start learning just trimming. And by week 2, you're learning to shoe, and you just trim and shoe horses the whole time, and you learn more and more.
Okay. How long does it take? For the
So
school?
they offer a 2-week course, a 4-week course, and an 8-week course. I took the 8-week course.
Now, what made you decide to do the schooling and to train?
So, I had a couple just regular 9-to-5 jobs, and I realized it took so much time away from horses, and I decided that I just wasn't going to be happy not working with horses, so I had to find a way to be able to do that. And so I became really fascinated with farriers and what they do, and
Okay.
it all started from there.
So I'm assuming with that, you grew up around horses. and-
No, actually, I loved and wanted to be around horses my entire life, and I never got my chance till I was 13 or 14. I finally got the opportunity to begin taking lessons,
Okay.
and then I started volunteering at the barn I took lessons at 2 days a week. Then I got my own horse and started volunteering there every single day. So
that was the beginning of the end. You found your
it
passion.
completely consumed my life. So
Now, you took lessons. So what kind of lessons? What did you do with horses, and what do you do now besides a farrier? What do you do with your own horse?
So I show now, but when I took lessons, I was just learning basic riding. I took from Robin Nail at Whistle Stop Ranch.
Okay.
And I still take lessons with her. There's always more to learn. And I trained a couple horses. I trained my own horse. And then I actually started learning how to trim on my
Okay.
own horse. He's
Okay.
the one that gave me my start in trimming. And yeah.
So I would imagine that there are some situations you get in trimming where some horses are easy to work with than others.
Oh yeah.
So-
And of course school prepared me for that. We had to work on horses that weren't the best. They wanted to prepare us for the real world out there in different situations that we might encounter. And so yeah, it can get rough sometimes, but now being out of school and getting to do my business the way that I want to do it, I can choose if I want to work on the dangerous horses or
Okay.
the horses that don't stand so well, or if I want to work on the horses that'll stand there and cooperate.
So what are some of I know with school, it sounds like you have to learn a lot of anatomy of
Yeah.
the horses themselves, the legs, the hooves. Why is that important? What goes into that?
I'm a bit of an anatomy nerd.
Okay.
But distal limb anatomy is super important. I feel like all farriers trim or shoe to achieve the same goal, which is optimal functional support and performance of the distal limb.
Okay.
And achieving that requires a fine-tuned interaction of all the parts within the leg, inside and out. When you trim or shoe, you are changing the shape of the foot, and you're affecting the bones, the joints, the tendons, and the ligaments, everything, and that's all super important.
Absolutely. It's the same with people. So I would imagine any creature needs good feet, and with a horse, good hooves. Now, one thing that you just talked to me about when we were waiting to come on, that I never knew that there were different ways to shoe a horse. So what are the different options? I know you said there are so many different, but what are some main options for shoeing?
Yeah, there's so many different options, and it just depends on your horse and what you're doing with them. So if your horse is not performing well, or not sound or happy barefoot, you can try all kinds of different shoes to make them sound and comfortable. I'll use a barrel horse as an example. A lot of barrel horses might wear aluminum rim shoes.
Okay.
Rim shoe just allows for more grip for high speeds and fast turns and stops. And aluminum shoe is a light option, that way that they, you know, nothing's weighing them down. They can move fast and do what they need to do.
Okay. So so there are different type shoes for different activities with horses
Yes.
typically.
Yeah, there's a different shoe for every activity you could possibly do with a horse. And that doesn't mean that they need those shoes to do that activity. It just depends on what you want and what your horse needs.
Now you have the different options. You are primarily gluing shoes, but there are
Yes.
different options for gluing and nailing. Tell us a little bit about the difference there.
Okay, well, the glue-on shoes are composite shoes. They're made of rubbery and plasticky materials,
Okay.
and they allow for more expansion and contraction of the foot. They allow for better movement of the foot, and they're a lot more shock absorbing than the traditional steel or aluminum shoe.
Okay. And so, and that again, you're training right now to do the traditional aluminum nailing, but your preference is the gluing.
Yes.
How long does that take? How do you glue a shoe onto a horse?
Well, it's a long process. It takes an hour and a half to 2 hours. And so the process, you know, if they're already wearing glue-on shoes, you pull them, you have to trim the foot and, you know, get the foot back the way you want it, because a horse's foot's continuously growing
Okay.
all the time. And so then you have to make sure your shoes fit the horse, and you have to glue them on, and then you have to get the, you know, trim the glue down and make them look nice and pretty. And
Okay. Now, typically, what age horse do you start? If someone doesn't want to go the natural route, what age do you start shoeing a horse?
Around 2 or 3, but it's
Okay.
best to start, you know, trimming as soon as possible.
Okay.
Hmm.
And with a standard, so you said it can take a while with the glue. When you get there and you have to pull an old shoe off, do you just pry it off? Or
Yeah, I mean, we use
is it-
different tools and stuff to get it
Okay.
off, and they're usually stuck on really good, and
I
it's
bet.
quite
It'd
a
have to be.
process. You know, because once you get the boot off, then you have to get all the glue off that's still on the foot, and it's
It's a
long,
process.
tedious process.
Now, that leads to a question that someone told me that obviously knows nothing about horses. They were asking me if a horse throws a shoe, so to speak. Do you have to replace all 4 shoes when you do that, or you just do the one shoe? Does somebody call you and say, "Hey, I need a shoe replaced"?
Yeah, so if I was to go out and shoe a horse and a week later it threw the shoe, I would go and just put that one shoe back on. But typically we trim and shoe horses between 4 and 8 weeks.
Okay.
So if it's getting towards the time to go ahead and re-shoe or retrim, we'll go ahead and go out and do it all and get it
Okay.
all done.
Okay. Well, that is a lot of fascinating information about horse hooves. That's a complicated world you're in, but
It is.
But it sounds like you love it, and I hear you do such a beautiful job with it. So
Well, thank
I'm glad
you.
you decided to choose that. But you still have your own horse.
Yes, I
and
do.
Do you have other pets?
I have dogs, cats, everything, a chameleon.
You have a little bit of all. You should have brought the chameleon on. I had
Yeah.
a snake on here a few weeks ago. Well, so we really appreciate you coming on the show today. And
Thank you for
maybe
having me.
sometime we can come out and actually experience watching you shoe a horse,
Yeah.
because I've never seen that done. Like I said, I've never really been around horses that much,
Uh-huh.
but the ones that I've been around, certainly it wasn't during a shoeing process or anything like that.
Mhm.
Well, how do people get in touch with you before we end the segment here?
So my account on Facebook is Prince Hoof Care Services. They
Okay.
can get in touch with me through there, or they could give me a call or a text at 256-391-7849.
Okay, perfect. And also, before I let you go, what area do you serve? Where will you
You know,
go?
I really have no limits, but if I'm going over 30 miles, I charge a travel fee.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, that's good to know. Well, thank you so much for getting up early this morning and meeting me here today. We appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank
and we'll
you.
have you on again sometime. You get some interesting things happen with some horses. We'll talk about it.
Alrighty.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us for Pet Connect. Remember, we've got Aiden here who is available for adoption, so come on out to the shelter to meet him this Saturday at 11. And then we also have the litter cleanup downtown. We're going to meet early Saturday morning at 8 a.m. and we'll be walking around downtown with the Beautification Council. And maybe at some point we can bust some dogs out of the shelter and walk the dogs with us while we pick up litter and train them to pick up litter also. And we will have more Daybreak after these messages.